Hey everybody, welcome back to the Simplify Podcast, the Keep It Simple Podcast. If you've catching this, you've caught us for episode 27, and today we have a lifelong friend, very dear friend, Caroline. It's not Freeman anymore; it's Caroline Davis. Caroline Davis. 4 years of Caroline Davis on the podcast. CB is one of the OGs. Incredibly instrumental in just tons and tons of work that we did in Middle Georgia. She is a leader of leaders, has been since she was a middle schooler. I'm sure that we'll unpack some Senate page stuff maybe in this episode and just kind of talk through, tell stories. Many of you know CB, you've known her forever. It'd be good to catch up and hear about where she is and how she is. But for those of you that don't, she is a gift, literally, genuinely a gift to all who know her and brings a degree of excellence to nearly everything she puts her hand to. So, Caroline, welcome to the podcast. It's long overdue. I don't know how we've made it through 26 episodes without having you on, but welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, of course. So just kind of catch us up, I guess. Where are you now? What are you up to? For those that do know you, just kind of an update. What's going on?
Okay. So this is why I love this podcast, because like with Brian last week, I don't think I've ever heard his adult voice. I haven't seen him since he graduated. So hearing him like sound like a dad, it's just that was the weirdest thing. So I love getting to catch up. So I'm happy to catch up with everybody. Right now, I live in Rome, Georgia, with my husband, Alex. We met in Savannah, Georgia, while he was in physical therapy school, and I was in speech therapy school. And I work at an inpatient rehab. I work at a hospital building, but I work on the inpatient rehab floor. So cool. I do speech therapy with adults that need help for speech, swallowing, cognition. I see lots of memory issues, strokes, TBIs, and then I am in radiology a lot. It's the side of things that people don't really realize I do, but I do modified barium swallow tests, and so I am in the x-ray area, and I see how people swallow with x-ray. Something people do not expect my job to entail.
It's pretty cool, though. So we have a young man here, mid-40s, who had a stroke about a year ago, over a year ago. And I had no experience with that, but journeying through that with him, like daily, literally daily, the amount of work that you do and the work that you do is huge. With him, I mean, from going to the whatever the little packets are that we would have to put in his drinks to make it thick, kind of the slurry, all of that was new to me, but journeying through that with him and the you that came in and helped him with swallowing, helped him with speech and regaining some of his speech, it's incredible work. I mean, it's meaningful work. I'm sure it has to feel meaningful.
Every job has pros and cons, and with my job there's so much freedom because there's so many different settings that you can work in. Like lots of people work with kids in a school, help them with their R's. That's a basic one, but in the hospital it's a lot different, and you get to see a lot of different things, and it's interesting because there's acute care where you go when you're like immediately sick, and then inpatient rehab is like the next step. That if you can't go home yet, and then you would go outpatient. And inpatient rehab, it's just a lot of full turnover. There's definitely some sad things I have to see, and there's some people that don't want my help, and I've had to kind of work through like how to help someone that doesn't really want to help themselves or get help, and that can be a sad situation. But my mom always reminds me, like, go into their room and be like, make their day happy. And I've had to shift, because at first I was like, I'm here to get these people better. They better make progress. They better show me that they're working. Yeah. And not everybody's gonna put in effort. Some of these people are like 98 years old. Like they don't want to work. Yeah. And I like to try to be mindful of like when I'm 93, I don't want someone like me coming in and asking me what day it is. They just better walk away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I have to do my job, so it's like a balance.
Yeah.
But it's been good.
Yeah.
I've been working there for almost 2 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so it dawned on me just then, like teaching people to swallow or teaching people to speak again,
Mm-hmm.
to all of their speech stuff. You come from a line of teachers.
Yeah.
So even though you're in kind of a medical realm, you're also very much teaching,
Yeah.
which is, I had not thought about that until right now in real time. So knowing your family the way that I do, that's kind of sweet. That you're
Kind of like, I think the
that you're
teaching
teaching.
side of things brings my patience. Because I feel like I'm a
Yeah.
generally, I mean, Alex might not say so, but I'm a patient person for the most part. And I think a lot of times that's just what people need, especially in those settings.
Yeah. Yeah. So he graduated Doctor
Physical
of
therapy.
Physical
Mhm.
Therapy. And so is he practicing too?
Yes.
Is he at
He's
a private practice
He's at
or what's he?
outpatient, so he's at like the level after.
Okay.
But so he's the level after inpatient rehab technically. But he works with athletes, so
Okay.
he's a sports PT.
Nice.
Mhm.
Nice,
So-
nice. So through Barry or not?
It's through Atrium Health Floyd. Like we're employed by the same people, but he's at a different building,
Okay.
and he sees.
Gotcha.
He sees athletes from very shorter local schools.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Do y'all still have the Rome Braves? I know they're not the Braves anymore. They
Yeah,
changed it to something
they're
dumb.
called The
Yeah.
Emperors, and it's a penguin.
Yeah, Rome Emperor. Is that right? With a penguin.
Mhm.
I saw
So
that, man.
weird.
That was all the thing. So does he get to work on any of those athletes as well or no?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
he gets the college athletes.
Cool. So what's
he gets
that?
the college athletes, and I think he likes that.
Yeah, which I'm sure is probably better, I would bet,
Mhm.
than some of the pro athletes
Mhm.
if I had to guess. So our stories, your story and my story, have intermingled since long before you were born. So really, really cool kind of. So Caroline's mother, Angela, was my youth director. So when I was middle school, high school, Angela, which is crazy to think about. We talked about this, when I had you, but she was like 19 or 20 years old when she started doing youth work. Ricky Varnell let her come and which is crazy to think about, but she was really good at it and was the queen of community. So she built community with our little group. And so then fast forward all these
Well, you gotta
years,
rewind,
I'm
You gotta
rodeoing.
rewind one more bit because now Janice Simpson
Okay.
is secondly my step grandmother, and she was the true
Yeah.
queen of community because that's what my mom was saying when I told her I was going to be on here. She's like, he needs to have Janice because she's the true queen because Mom said that's where I learned it from, and then you had it
Yeah.
there, and then it just it kept going.
Yeah, and Miss Simpson was my kindergarten teacher, right? So I had Miss Simpson at Hurd as a kindergartner, and then taught. She taught Sunday school and was always at Liberty, which was super, super impactful. Of course, Catherine was in the youth group, and then Laurie ended up being like
Rarity.
the mainstay. Mickey and Laurie were the two kind of. I mean, they literally were the pillars in our student ministry. Just lots and lots of deep relationship that's beautiful that you can't plan. It's just God being God.
I got to see
so
them.
Angela was
I
my.
got to see them this weekend, and it's just the weirdest thing that I got to see Laurie because I went over to my papa's house to have dinner with them.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, not sorry at all. That's the good stuff to me. And just today I was sitting talking to Josiah. Josiah was on, I don't know, a while back ago. And he has launched it's called Launch AV. But he's doing audio-visual, flying drones, capturing video, audio, pictures. We're revamping our website at the church that I'm serving. And Josiah got the contract. He was there today capturing some footage, doing some stuff. And he and I were talking about, he was like, how in the world did you end up in Middle Missouri? And I was like, how much time do you have, And so I gave him like the cliff notes of how we ended up here. And Jerry Worth was sitting beside me. And so kind of brought in some of Jerry's story. And what I'm getting at is, like, God works through relationships, and always has, always will, is working right now through relationships. And these stories and the way that our lives kind of shape and mold and morph, and the ties that bind through that, if we were to sit down and try to plan,
Like scattered.
or you know what I mean, like if I sat down as a 19-year-old kid and told Angela, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on a walkabout for about 15 years. I'm going to disappear, and then I'm going to reappear, and I'm going to do youth work, and your kids are going to be in my youth. I mean, you can't plan those type things. It's just God being God. So when I was doing administrative work at First, Charlie Judd was still doing youth work. When I came to First, when Jimmy Asbell, who is amazing, absolute gold, when he hired me at First, I was surprised to find out that y'all were there.
It was random. We literally drove to the wrong church.
Oh, I don't guess I knew that, or if I did know that, I forgot it.
We were supposed to be going
So
somewhere else.
you didn't know Jimmy. I thought that y'all knew Jimmy from Wesley
Well,
UMC
they did, but
on
it was an
Hartley
it was
Bridge.
an accident, according to my mom.
Okay, so you were going to
Somewhere
some
else.
other church, and you arrived at First.
Yeah, I don't know how that logic happened, but that's how
It's
my mom
incredible.
tells the story.
Wow, I didn't know that. So there you are. You were with Charlie for a year, didn't you? Weren't you with Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I was present, but not super active. I tried to.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
scared.
I think that was 7th grade. You're 7th grade, if I remember right.
Maybe sixth or seventh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 7th, because he didn't have 6th graders. We didn't have 6th graders for a long time. We were really slow on the curve. Even after the school system changed, we didn't for a while. But so yeah, all of that goes down. Charlie heads out to Colorado. I end up lumped in over there, and I guess a great place to start. So 8th grade Caroline had been homeschooled for a season. Is that, have I got that? Am I remembering that right?
I feel like I might have even just been in 7th grade. I don't know.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, I started in the fall of 2010. So I chaperoned the ski trip in February of 2010. He left in June of 2010, and I started informally, kind of interim.
I think I was in
the
7th
fall
grade
of
when he came because I
10.
was too young to go
Okay.
on the big stuff trip, but the spot opened up
Okay.
Sunday morning that they left, and they snuck me onto the big stuff trip. And so like
Was I on that
no,
trip, or was Charlie?
was.
Charlie was, okay. So that would have been the summer. That would have been his last. That was June of 2010.
I was like coming
Okay.
right in as he was leaving.
Yeah. So that was so you would have finished 7th grade and you were coming into 8th,
I don't know, something like
or
that.
you were going into 7th.
I don't know.
Anyway, so you come in and you were
Awkward.
a little timid. No, you were never awkward. You were a little bit timid because it was a big room full of weird people. I mean, it was the land of misfit toys in every way.
That
and
popped
it
up
seemed
on my
like
Facebook
it-
the other day. We had gone on like some kind of youth trip, and after we got back, I don't know what trip it was, but I posted the picture of the Land of Misfit Toys thing, and I was like, I love my youth group.
Yeah. I mean, that was us, though, really. The cool thing about that group is there were no cliques. There weren't enough people alike to have a clique. Like, it was a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and everybody, and then it grew exponentially really quickly. But where I want to start is, so what I clearly remember is Mindy tending to you. Like, almost immediately. She would never say she had a favorite, but I can guarantee you, if I asked Mindy if she had a favorite as far as the next generation, it would have been you. What was that like to have somebody include you, pour into you, to model that for you? Because you fast forward all those years and you were that for then the next generation beneath you. What was that like? That's a great place to start, I think.
I mean, I know I've heard you say it too when you were a youth, but I just felt like I was like them. So I felt like more like their friend than them having to babysit me. And I feel like that helped. So maybe thanks to being a little mature, maybe. I don't know if I was mature, but regardless, I think it goes back one step further than Mindy because I was well accepted into the youth group before she started coming around. And that was Morgan Mellinger. That trip that I literally don't even think I had a bag packed, and we left from, somehow I got clothes to go to Panama City, but that morning at church someone backed out. And the connection with the Simpsons and all that, Mom said, look, this girl Morgan, she's going to take care of you. Just go. And she did, and she was my connection to Mindy, I feel like. A silent connection.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Mindy. Morgan is rock steady too, just a little more reserved, quieter.
You know, that group of girls, they did it. They always invited me to stuff. Thankfully, my mom drove me anywhere and everywhere I needed to go. And so if they said they're going to be at Sonic, I was going to be at Sonic.
And I remember Vanda doing like girls' nights at the parsonage and doing nails or whatever and having girls' nights, and Mindy and them making sure that Mindy and Morgan and Haley and that whole bunch, making sure that you were there and included, and even sleepovers. I don't know. I don't remember all of it. I just remember upperclassmen being extremely intentional to include you in anything they would do.
I'm thankful for it because ultimately, like you said, I was homeschooled in middle school. The youth group was my socialization. That's how I connected with others. That's how I knew what other people were doing, what people liked, what I could hang out with them doing. So I didn't have 8 to 3 friends. My friends were at youth, and so if I needed to socialize, and like that's healthy to do when you're a teenager, then that's where I had to go, and that's where my parents knew I needed to be.
That's awesome. So the other thing, I mean, your folks did such an amazing job with the two of you, and that's why you are how you are. I remember your dad. How old were you when your dad and Bobby Gill took you to Africa?
That was 6th grade. Way too, I'll say probably too young to go with a group of guys. I was the only girl that went, and it was a culture shock, but it really set me up for, if I hadn't had that moment, I don't think I'd be the person I am today. I saw things.
And then fast forward just a couple years, maybe 2 years, and you and I went to Costa Rica. Down to serve, again with Bobby, but to serve Pastor Demas and them in Costa Rica. That was a great trip.
Yeah, missions are a big part of my life. I mean, they're not anymore as much because I don't have the time or the funds to be off of work, but missions, there's a big chunk of my life spent with that, and it gave me purpose, and it made me closer to God, so it's a big part of my story.
Yeah, so that's a beautiful segue, I guess, into Hinton. We can go that direction now. So the Hinton Rural Life Center in Hayesville, North Carolina, sacred ground, holy ground, for sure, for you, for me, for so many. And that goes back, again, it's a tie to your mom. So your mom and Miss Simpson took us. I still have friends now from Mississippi and other places that I made at Hinton as a student. And so then fast forward all those years, end up leading a group, and I'm like, summer missions, we're going to Hinton. And we went, and
that was summer 2011, I think is the first time we went.
It was, yeah. And that was the summer of Mike Horn and Matt Butler and Ashley Waldroop and that whole bunch.
I don't know how I squeezed myself into so many people's lives when they were, like, as an 18-year-old, I feel like if someone did that to me, I'm like, what are you doing? But those people,
Yeah.
like, I don't know how I got so lucky that they didn't, maybe they minded me around, but they let me stick around.
They didn't mind you around at all. I mean, you added to each relationship. That's that transaction of relationship. We've talked about it on these different episodes. Authentic relationship is bi-directional. It's give and take, and you brought something to the table in every one of those relationships. But to be there when you go back and think, even now, our ties here to Middle Missouri were made at Hinton
Yeah.
through missions,
'Cause
through Tim Ross.
Tim and my dad
Go
were
ahead.
on the same Hinton team in 2011.
Hmm.
So that was,
And I had Brendan
and me.
on that team. Yeah, I had you, Miss Jones House. Sherry Perry was on that team, our
So
team. And
crazy.
she still goes to our church. I mean, she sings in the choir every Sunday. I'm up there teaching, and if I look over, there's Sherry Perry. And it's
How many?
just a
How
surreal.
many years ago? 12? 13?
That would be
13
years ago. Yeah.
Impressive.
And again, you can't plan. God works through relationships, and whether it be Miss Simpson or your mom, whether it be Morgan or Mindy pouring into you, or your dad making friends with Tim, or Seahorn being on that trip and being invited out here to speak at the Hearn Center. I mean, when you step back after you have a good sample size, you get a 10-year sample size, and you draw out to 30,000 feet and kind of look down at all the nuances of relationship, and it will blow your mind. So cool. And a lot of those relationships are still very much in place today. Like, I know exactly where Mike Horn is. I know what he's up to. I know where Ashley Waldrop is. I know what she's up to. And there's different people from those different ages and phases and stages that we still are in. I mean, life's life. Everybody's busy. Everybody's working. But you still have time to kind of keep up with people and know where folks are.
Yeah.
So talking about relationships and especially faith, like, what are some of your earliest, this will go back to family, I knowing your family the way that I do, what are some of your earliest remembrances of a life of faith? Like, what are some of your earliest moments where you realized that you were practicing the Christian faith?
Well, my mama always took me to, not always, but most days took me to Sunday school, because my parents wouldn't always go to Sunday school, but they would come later, so I would be ready early. Mama would pick me up, take me to Liberty, and I remember, honestly, I don't know what age Sunday schools we taught, but Miss Mason, she was my Sunday school teacher, and there's someone else. I don't know who else was, but there was a man too. And I just remember them hearing the stories, thinking about it, and a lot of it, my first thoughts about everything had a lot to do with heaven, because I couldn't wrap my head around it, because it was something they said, like, how does a 3 or 4-year-old, 5-year-old understand heaven? And so that's my earliest memory. I mean, it doesn't go much deeper than that, but it was early. And I know I've heard other people on this podcast say, like, my true testimony is that, like, I got to be raised that way. So.
That's a good word, because so many people think, like, jailhouse floor down and flat broken, busted is like the testimony. And sure, there are those, the kind of prodigal mindset, but I think that people are too dismissive about a faith-lived, lifelong journey. And that's the faith of our grandparents and our parents, the ways that we were raised, the community that rallied around us. Liberty was a microcosm. I mean, it was its own sphere. And, I can do the same thing that you're saying with different people at different ages and stages. Miss Simpson would be one. Beverly Wilson would be one. The Kerstetters. As you just kind of look through those ages and stages, that local church, that community of faith that took care of their own. I can clearly remember different people in the church reprimanding me, no different than my parents would. If I was out of sorts, which happened a lot, they'd be like, they'd get on to me. That was that community, that helps to discipline and helps disciple and helps kind of shape and form and mold.
Then obviously too, like kind of going back to when I went to Ghana in 6th grade, like that was very, very formative, and that's when I feel like if there was a moment that I like maybe got saved or like knew or felt it, definitely I could pinpoint a moment there. Just the opportunities that I've been given, I know I'm blessed to have.
Yes, yeah, and it's a gift to look back and be aware of that. You know what I mean? To go, and that's a beautiful thing about missions, whether domestic or foreign. You realize how blessed you are. Sometimes if you live in a bubble, you just think everybody lives that way.
But not every. I mean, that's
you get
one
out.
thing to know is like some people live in a bubble and they can't help it. That's just what they know. And so
Sure.
I feel like super blessed and lucky that I didn't have to live in a bubble.
Yeah. So you talked about this moment in Ghana. I'm a deep believer that like different ages, stages, phases of life, we have these kind of pivotal moments. Like there's these marquee moments kind of in our minds. Would you be willing to share some of those, like different ages, different stages, whether it be middle school, high school, the college years, even up to now? Like, what are some of the pivotal moments that were super formational in your spiritual life?
I don't know. There's many, probably. Spiritually, I mean, in Ghana, there was a moment where I heard other people praying, and they were speaking languages that I did not know, and I just felt it. I don't know much way other than explain it that way.
Yeah.
I haven't even really. I mean, it's something I think about, but that is a moment where it's just like I don't even know what I experienced, but I know it was something important. I would say when Matt Butler died, that was a big moment for me, and he was like the brother that I didn't have. We were really close, and to have something bad happen, and power through it, and know that things work out and they're for the best. That was a big moment.
Yeah, so for those who aren't aware or not part of our tribe, there was a young man, Matt Butler, who had lupus. He was a summer staffer. He was so much more than a summer staffer, but he was a summer staffer at the Hinton Rural Life Center, and just a personality, just an infectious light. He'd come into a room and just light the room up. And unfortunately, we lost him to lupus. And but in the years after, you talk about legacy. In the work that his sisters, his family, his mom and dad and sisters carried on in his name, and the amount of ministry that's still being done in his memory there. Matt, for sure, it was a really, really hard time in student ministry because you had a handful of teenagers who were experiencing grief, some for the first time. Some had not lost a grandparent yet. Some had, that's what I say, I mean, they hadn't experienced grief, right? And so having to process this young person who obviously was in love with Jesus and was just bigger than life, and then he's gone. Right. And so you try to tend to teens as they process that. Certainly pivotal moment.
I mean,
What would be some
every
other?
moment with the youth group, they're, I can't hand pick them out, but gosh, I
Yeah.
know that they existed every Sunday, every trip.
Yeah. So this will be, you may or may not have anything, but this is the first time I've asked this question, I think, of anybody, on air or not. So it used to be very, very regular. It actually still is, because I'm doing youth ministry again. So, like, we just took a ski trip. We're getting ready for a summer mission trip. We're going to Kentucky.
Okay.
So it's the western side of the Appalachians, but everything I can gather, it's a lot like Hinton.
Is it the Appalachian Service Project?
No, it's called Big Creek
Okay.
Missions. It looks legit. So anyway, my point is, our chaperones that were on the ski trip, I had this conversation with them, but Mickey and Laurie and Vicky Meeks and all of those people can tell you, almost every retreat I would be with an adult or two, and I would say, I wonder what these kids are going to remember about these times when they're our age. Like, I don't know that they're going to remember a specific lesson that we taught or a specific passage that we unpacked, but they're going to remember things that we did. They're going to remember, places that we went, things that we did together, the way that they felt in certain environments.
I sent it to you the other day. I sent you a picture of us on the Fires Creek waterfall, and I was like, core memories being made. But literally,
yes.
I mean, if you ask them that question, I'm here to say that core memories are being made. Like,
yeah.
Sure, I don't remember every single second, but I remember something from every trip.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially with Hinton, and it kind of goes back to maybe where you experience God, where you feel God. Like you said, Hinton is very sacred ground. I'm thankful I only live about 2 hours from there, so sometimes Alex will, there's certain times of year where I'm like, I have to go to Hinton. And so we drive up there. It's conveniently located next to a fun casino. Sometimes we go to there. Side note.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I go there and I just sit and I can feel God. It's the weirdest thing, but it's the truest thing.
Amen. Yeah.
But yes, core memories for sure.
And you went and served one summer or
one
more?
Summer.
How many summers were you on?
Just one.
One summer on staff there?
It was a hard summer. But it was a good summer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when you get to see behind the veil. You go for a week and you kind of are in front of the veil, in front of the curtain, but then when you're there and you're behind the curtain, I'm sure there's a whole different
I love it because
nuance.
I feel like there were so many things at Hinton that I love so much, like the morning dance, making your sandwiches, the routine of Hinton.
Knee head.
But then when I went back, it wasn't exactly how I remembered it, 2011 style, and I was kind of not frustrated, but I was like, what are we doing with this? And so now I see they do morning cheers, or there's some things that I had tried to invest back into Hinton that I've gathered from other camps, and they still do it now. Sometimes I see that on
Wow.
So it's just
awesome.
good to know that at least I made a little bit of a mark there.
Yeah. From Hobie and some of those places. Is that the Alive, Awake, Alert, and Interactive?
Something like that.
Yeah, that's the same thing Allison says. Allison's like, that's wrong. I'm like, nope, you're wrong, Allison. So there's the Hinton. Do you remember climbing? I can't believe we climbed that waterfall.
I didn't go all the way up. That picture is as far as I went. I went back down and hung out.
You may have gone around and taken the trail, but there was a time I took a backpack with sacraments, and we took communion at the top of the tip top. That for me is a major memory. I remember standing way up in that area once it gets all gnarly and tight, but being in that water on those rocks and taking communion.
I know Brian kind of touched on it last week, kind of about learning more about why we do certain things in the church. Communion is very special to me. I don't know Just it always was as an acolyte getting to serve it. I feel like that was always an honor to get to do. I did it as an acolyte at First Methodist in Warner Robins, and I took it. I always took it. I always even like as an acolyte. I started as an acolyte as young as you could, probably at Liberty, and I always was a rule follower, liked the rules, and someone told me you have to walk this way, you have to wear this, and I was like, okay, I got this. But I get to serve God doing it, and it had a purpose, and so those are really good moments for me, just to feel close to God and get to serve others, and that was leading me to the weird places that I've done communion. But up on that, I remember one communion. I think we were in Costa Rica with Bobby Gale, and we had like Mountain Dew and I don't know, like chicken nuggets or something as communion. And it's just like, no matter what it is, you can still like honor God and have this moment and remember Him. And it's really important to do that as much as you can, I think.
And that's the key, is remember, right? So in, not to get technical or preachy, but in that passage when Jesus, so it's the Passover supper, it's the end of the Passover Seder, and you got to imagine like leftovers are on the table, like they've had their Passover meal, it's after the supper, and so he literally takes bread, leftovers, and he takes wine, which they had been consuming through the night, and he does the teaching, and then he says, do this as often as you shall in remembrance of me. And that concept of just remembering is the key. I love that you said, it helps you remember.
There's so often times where I forget. I know throughout my journey with you, I've always been like, Ben, like, it's ups and downs. Like, I'm in a valley right now. I'm in a mountaintop. We've just gone on this trip. All right, now I'm down. I was in a valley for about 7 years, so valleys it takes now I'm in a much more constant routine of things, but having them, knowing what reminds you is really a benefit.
And having that home base, that's the key to me to a life of faith, right? I'm thankful yours was only 7 years. Mine was like 16, I mean, it's, but it's, and I'm not saying that in like yours was 7, mine was 16. I wish mine would have been 16 days. I'm not saying that in like a 16-year braggart way. It's actually kind of embarrassing. But to have that home base, so that at the core you know what you know. Like the foundation's been laid, and it's like that seed is there, it's dormant in the ground, and then all of a sudden sunlight and water and fertilizer, and then it begins to produce fruit again.
Well, I think
that
I was in a unique situation because I was so set up, so perfect youth group foundation, and then I went to college, and like I think I've heard some other people say it, but like when you go to college, there's just things like it's not how it was, and it's so hard to do it by yourself, and you try this, you try that, and you don't know nothing is exactly like the youth group was, but that's what I wanted. And I'm just now getting to be again where like I feel stable in relationships, I feel stable with God, and I didn't get that in college. I left the youth group, and I was going down. I was up there for a while. Like, it could sustain me for a while. But I joined a sorority. I tried to go to Wesley, but plus college, it's just like the division was too much. And it honestly got to me. And then there was lots of moving for school. COVID happened. I got married. And there was just no Christian. Not like Alex is great. He reads his Bible every day. He's such a great example for our family. But we didn't have a stable church all of those years. I didn't have a stable church from the moment I graduated until now. And it's like I felt like I was floundering for so long because I couldn't find a church because, one, with COVID, there wasn't really an opportunity to like get plugged in. And then we were moving. We lived in St. Simon's for a while. We like we were church hoppers. We couldn't find anything that fit us. Alex grew up Baptist. I grew up Methodist. And so, there is some differences there that we needed to land on together. But we found a church now, and I feel like whole again.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's beautiful. And that's unfortunately, that is the norm. The reason we started the Space Between is because I was at a conference in 2011, and I heard Reggie Joyner, the founder of Orange, Think Orange. He shared a statistic, and this is old data, but what he shared then was upon high school graduation, 85% of young people will leave organized faith.
And it really would.
And
Sometimes
of that
it's not
85
by choice. It just happens.
No, it's not. It's just life. Of that 85%, only 30, it was less than 35, only 30-something% returns, and it's typically after the birth of their first child. Usually that's the timing. And I remember sitting in that room, like looking around the room, it's full of youth leaders, and nobody seems alarmed. I was really young at youth ministry, like I was fresh off the truck, and I'm looking around and I'm like, what are we doing? Like if we're building programs, if we're discipling kids, pouring into kids only to get them to this place, and then they drop off the face of the earth, like what do we do? So that I'm living it now. So our Wick, he's a he's a college freshman. And tonight, actually, he's visiting a campus ministry on his own accord, not of my doings at all. I was so pleased, though, when I got a text that, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about going here. I'm going to try this. Will you be praying, about this? And I'm like, you bet I will.
Yeah.
It happens.
Kind of a neat story. We go to First Presbyterian. We're members at First Presbyterian in Rome, and we joined a small group and everything like that. And this is kind of Allison's story, so I'm sure she'll maybe when she's on here one day she can speak more to it. But she's in occupational therapy school in Augusta, and it happened to me. I think it might happen to everybody. If it doesn't happen to you in grad school, then you're stronger than both of us. But she was just getting really down on herself, anxious. It was like she knew this wasn't who she was, but she was missing something, it sounded like. And so I heard that, and I was just like, at my small group, I said, like, let's pray for her. My sister's going through something, and she's not acting like herself. She's stressed. She's disconnected. And someone at my group, there's a couple, and they're from Augusta. I had no idea. This was literally like the third time I'd ever been in this group. And they come up, and she's like, hey, like, we're from Augusta, and his mom is the one who does the Bible study group for the health professions from Augusta. So let's get them connected. And so then Allison was able to go to that person's mother-in-law's house for a Bible study, and she's continued to do it. She's continued to get stronger. I've seen a change in her, and it's because I knew that valley just because it's like the season of life, and I was like, let's do something to try to help her. And I think I hope and I think she's gotten a lot better, and it was just one of those connections too. Like, if I didn't join the church, if I wasn't there that moment, it could have been different.
Yeah. God works through relationships. It's like I said, I don't know what week or so ago, but I've said it for as long as anybody would listen. God doesn't pass love notes, he passes people. That's just the way, that's just the economy of God.
And yet I'm always like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like, how is the world so small? Every time I'm shocked.
Yeah, somehow we're still surprised,
It's a good, I guess that's a good thing. It keeps it exciting. Yeah.
For me, it causes me to really, so I'm in this season of life right now where I'm hyper-focused on intentionality, on presence, and really, really trying to learn to be fully present with whoever's in front of me. which is not natural, right? For me, at least. I guess some people may be hardwired that way, but that mindfulness and presence of whoever the person is right in front of you, and not thinking about the to-do list or whatever's next or the 4 people that you got to see tomorrow, but just that ministry of presence right in front of you. And if God's economy is relationship, it seems to me that each person that is placed in front of you, I mean, you just don't ever know. You never ever know how and where and when God may work. But you're right, it still surprises us, and it shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, anymore it shouldn't surprise us, but it certainly does. So the next question I've got jotted down here, I told you before we came on the air, usually I have no questions, but today on my walk home from work, I crammed some questions in the notes on my phone. So it's a loaded question, it's a big question, you can take as long as you'd like. Who are the people who have made a lasting impact on you, specifically, in your faith? And then any favorite stories involving those people?
That is a big question.
Yeah.
I know so many people, and I know so many lasting impressions.
Yeah.
I'd say with my faith, probably my mama, because she was the perfect person. And I tried.
She really was.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
I feel like I strive to be like her every day. Everything I do. And she's very, a lot of things is like, for me, when I started finally finalizing myself and getting involved in Rome, I started thinking like, my mama was so good at relationships. She was good at being friends with people. Everyone liked her. I never heard anybody say anything bad about her. And I started thinking like, those friendships, those relationships, they don't happen when you turn 60. They happen when you turn 26, and they last till you're older. And so intentionally I tried to be like, who do I want to surround myself with when I am old? Because she had, still like my mama's relationships are still present even though she's gone. And so it's just, I had to start being intentional about who do I want to surround myself with when I'm older. Not in like a you'll help me with this one day situation, but just what are the type of people I want in my corner. So that really has helped me, because in college I'd say I have a lot of acquaintances. Not like in youth group, I feel like I have friends that are the people I want to be in my corner when I'm old. And I still think they'll be in this corner because every time someone's on this podcast, I'm like, it's more like they're cousins to me than just friends. Like they're my family. And so I had to start figuring out. In college, I just had acquaintances. No one's always there. I have like the same best friend since kindergarten, and so that I'm very selective with my friends.
Lexi K.
Yes. I saw her this weekend. I went to Macon, so I got to see her. But
sweet.
I'm very selective with my friends. I think maybe that's because I've seen it. That's how my mom is probably. I could probably say that. But I didn't want to just. I wanted more people around me, and so I started trying to find people that were the people I wanted in my corner. And I've been really lucky. God's blessed me with a lot of good friends here, and they're the people that I know, have the same values as me, and so that's really good. I don't know how I got there, but Mama, yes, she's. I try to throw parties like her. I try to act like her. Everything.
Yeah, that is so good, and wise, profound. So choosing your friends at 26 in light of your 60-year-old self? Like, who do you still want to be hanging out with when you're in your 60s?
Also, who still wants to hang
That's
out with
pretty.
me? Because there's a lot of people that might say they're my friends and, like I said, more like acquaintances. But who can I call on when I need help? Who can call on me when they need help?
Yeah.
And I found that group of people, and things could change. But for right now, where I am right now, with that mindset, it's got me some good people.
Yeah, and Miss Pucket, she was, if ever there was a person who exuded grace, it was her.
I don't know anything
wrong
with her.
As a teenager, I was an absolute turd. She was never impatient with me. She was always kind. And I was at their house a lot. Like, I'm sure I bugged the snot out of them over there with your mom and with the youth group and stuff. But always just gracious, just gracious and kind.
Yep.
I can't imagine anybody ever having anything negative to say about Miss Puckett.
No. I'm sure there's many more people. But
what about other people? Yeah.
I'll just go ahead. You, obviously.
Yeah, but Bobby Gale, I know has been at different times has been pivotal, has made an impact.
I mean, you have been there, and you were the one that helped me and be accepted by everyone. I feel like, obviously, you helped me grow so much in my faith, and if I'd had any other youth director, I don't think I would have stuck around.
Yeah. Some of them can be weirdos. What about Mr. Bill Parker? I think about him.
Yeah. I feel like...
Did he have an impact on you or no?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think it just... Anybody that shows kindness and is just, like, sweet people. I know there's lots of them, but these people, like, exude sweetness. And Bill Parker is definitely one of those. It's just people that I want to be like. And those are the people that...
Seahorn. Those years with Seahorn were absolute gold.
It's kind of like, I know some people have probably said it before, but you like take pieces of other people that you want to be more like. From you, I know I took I was young, but the idea of Simplify, that's something that you kind of instilled in us early. And that's something that a piece of you that I think about all the time. Little pieces of different people is something. I mean, you pick out how you want yourself to be based on little pieces of other people that you enjoy. And so, there's so many people probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and then your folks. I know your folks have just. I mean. You and Allison are their life's work. I mean, they the lengths to which they have gone to develop y'all. I mean, to expose you to culture and education and just, I mean, all of the bits and parts and pieces.
I know for my mom, she always kind of encouraged us based on, she always said, I want something a little bit better for y'all than I had. And I'm sure she grew up good, but she always just pushed one more. And so that's something that I've really, not having kids anytime soon, no spoilers, but it's something that I know I want to be able to have that same mindset, and I want to be able to give them just a little bit more. And that's kind of like that generational. You just want the next generation to be better.
Yeah, that's legacy. You take the baton, you run your leg of the race, and you pass it off better than you received it. Not that you received it bad, but the hope is that you just pass it off a little bit better than you received it. And if so, then you've been found faithful in your leg of the race. And then I know your relationship with Allison. I mean, as a person who was kind of grafted into your family in a lot of ways, to watch the dynamic of y'all's relationship from middle school you and elementary her, and she's just annoying you, and we're over there swimming, and you're like, just go away, and she's, hey, watch me, and she's flipping off diving boards and doing all this crazy stuff, karaokeing and singing, and remember the dive-in movie where we showed Jaws on your pool house wall and swam and ate? That was so fun.
One thing with Allison is, like, she was the weirdest and wildest child ever. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
And maybe, yes, we have, like, this. We're 4 years apart, so maybe there are some differences in just our age. But we really didn't fight that much. I hear some siblings and they say, we're hitting each other, we're yelling at each other, we're throwing things at each other, and that was not us. I don't think it would have been tolerated. But that was not us, to my knowledge. Maybe I'm like sugarcoating it, but if you ask my mom, I think we individually got in trouble a lot, but not in trouble at each other that much.
Yeah, but to watch y'all's relationship from like middle school you, elementary her, then high school you, middle school her, and then college you, high school her, and to watch the relationship develop and the levels, just the different levels of love, and
I'm just so proud of
that.
her. Everyone is.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, no, I am too. I very clearly remember the day your mom came in and she was like, Allison told me that she can think, like her brain is not scrambled anymore. Like she can focus and she can think. And from that moment forward, that kid caught. She was like a rocket ship.
It's impressive.
I mean, it is so freaking impressive.
And ultimately, Alex has only entered our lives, going on 6 years now. But to people that don't know her, like the moments that you knew her and other people knew her at those younger ages, and then see her now, it's quite miraculous.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, for her to be, even when she was helping us, she was leading worship, she was singing on Sunday nights and stuff. If I sat and thought about it too long, I'd get emotional, just her. So I don't want to tell too much of her story. Yeah. We're talking about Allison a lot, but cool. We got to have her on.
I wanted to ask if we could have her on together, but I was like, I'll do my thing. We can do it separately.
We'll have you two on together at some point for sure. That would be absolute gold.
She's like just so wise, and her, I stumble on my words. She's so articulate, and I'm just really impressed.
Yeah, she's solid,
yes.
solid. We need to have Ellie White Knight on too. That's another one that just floors me.
That whole group of people is just like the people that invested in me, the people I invested. I grew up very, very close with my immediate cousins, and cousins are really important to me, and that's how I just feel with all those people. They all just feel like cousins, and that is a very high level of respect for me, because my cousins are some of my best friends and always have been.
Yeah, that goes back to authentic community. So I was telling you before we came on the air, but so last week it dawned on me when I was talking to Brian, I and some of the adult leaders got a lot of the accolades for everything that happened in our student ministry down there, because we went from 0 to like 120 miles an hour seemingly overnight, and sustained that for a long, long time. But really, having hindsight's always 20/20. And I would say at no point in there did I buy into the hype and think, I'm doing this. It just wasn't. It was like you're on a ride and you're buckled in and you're just trying to keep the ride like on the rails and not fall off the rails. That's what it felt like a lot of times. But when I look back, we had like gigantic student leaders. The quality of character and care, the intentionality, the buy-in. So it was like Connor, and I always lump Connor and Mindy together because they always have been in my brain. But it was like Connor, and then Connor and Mindy, but then it was Brian, and then it was you, and then it was Stephen, and then it was Allison. And obviously that's not it. There were a whole host of leaders and characters, and but when you look kind of down through there, there were key kind of people, characters.
I feel like we had a unique situation. I don't know how you ever decided to have like student leadership in youth group, because I don't feel like that's a very common thing.
It's not at all. No.
I don't know why we had politics in our youth group, but
Because I tell you exactly why. Because my second year doing student ministry, we had high school seniors that were applying for colleges, and in the extracurriculars, like how do you serve, like where you're on the Beta Club, Civitan, all these things.
resume builder.
Colleges got so competitive that our people, our kids, if we wanted them to succeed and get into the colleges that they wanted, we were going to do everything that we could to help them. And so to be able to say that you were the president of your youth group, or the vice president or secretary or treasurer, that was where that started, was just kind of to help kids. And what it turned into was, which I couldn't have planned. I'm not that smart. People wanted to be in those roles because the others that they looked up to, they wanted to emulate them. They remember how those people made them feel and took time for them and loved on them. And it's like, when I get to that age, I want to do that.
That was me. I started out as secretary. I don't know how I got secretary the first year, but that was a interesting role for me as a 7th or 8th grader, because that was the role that you had to talk to every single person that came in the room, and it felt, I mean, that was probably a good place for me to start, and that's probably what led me to be a better leader years to come.
Well, the Senate page, I mean, we've got a little bit of time, but the Senate page program, for you to get to go do that, I remember Ken and Tracy and that bunch making a point to come by and see you, and Bobby Gale was there again. Bobby Gale's thread runs through your blanket.
Very much so.
In a lot of different kind of
Very much so.
Yes, but that the Senate page program, Hobie, which I know later Allison did. I know that Ellie White Knight did some Hobie work. I think. There were a lot of parts and pieces in your development just as a leader, but it comes, I think it's DNA, it's genetics too. I mean, your mom and dad both are servant leaders at heart, and it's just, I think it's just in you. But then to have the opportunity, to have those chances to go and do some of those really big things, and the development part of that.
And a lot of them too just kind of helped me gain independence. Going to DC, being severely crippling homesickness, but my parents making me stick it out. You know, those types of moments, they're character building.
Yeah, for sure. I remember clearly your time in D.C. So, you got anything else you want to talk about? I've got more questions, but if there's anything that you really, really want to talk about, let's do that.
I don't have anything pressing. I mean, hit me with another question.
What role has community played in your spiritual development? Just the idea of community as a whole. Pretty much our whole conversation has answered that. But, yeah, what role has community played in your spiritual development?
Just kind of like a now story. Obviously, everything in our conversation, that would be my answer. But for now, you know, like I said, I was trying to build those friendships here. We finally got to be, we're here for a while, and I wanted to connect. I joined for a year. I'm not doing it any longer, but I joined the Junior Service League because it was just something that interested me. And it connected me with a group of girls that I might not have had the chance, because I had my friends at work, and their work friends are great, but you don't want to hang out with them all this time, and you also want to have people to socialize and things like that. And so I met this group of girls. We're all the same age, pretty much, similar ages, similar seasons of life, because I'm also in a really awkward season of life, non-college. I'm married, but I don't have kids. So like socializing it's most people I know are either still in college or have kids already. Neither of those things are bad. It's just not where we are right now. And so finding friends that are in that same season of life, that was a little difficult, but this Junior Service League opened it up for me, and I was able to find people that are like-minded. I think it's important to have friends that, servant's heart, like they got into that for a reason. They wanted to do something for their community too. But then I realized we would go to all the same social gatherings. And then I realized I looked around and they were all at my church. And so it was just like the weirdest thing, because my core group of friends here, now I know that they're Christians. I know that they like to have fun. I know that they like to serve others. And so that's been really fun and unique, I feel like. And so I feel so blessed by it.
I love the fact that you put they like to have fun in there. There's this misconception that if you're gonna live an active faith life, that you got to be a fun hater, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Like the most fun people that I know, like literally of all the people I know some crazy people. Of all the people that I know, the ones that have the most fun are believers. It's there's this stigma that if you're going to be a Christian and you're going to be actively engaged in a life of faith, that you can't have fun. That's
God made fun.
Such a lie, man. Yeah. And so just kind of coming full circle back to this concept that life is complicated, but faith doesn't have to be. I was reminded just about 2 weeks ago. This is a podcast of firsts, I guess. It's the first time I've ever said this out loud in any of our podcasts, or anything that I've never written it or printed it that I know of. But a couple weeks ago, I was reminded, when Simplify started, our youth group had just erupted. It just all these kids coming from all these angles, different backgrounds, different everything. Everybody was just so different. And a lot of far out thoughts and ideas and questions. And it dawned on me, like year 3 of doing student ministry, like faith is not complicated. And so we began this idea of just simplifying our faith, just kind of boiling things down. And you will remember this, I'm sure. I hope. So it was 3 questions. Do you believe that God is who the Bible says he is? Do you believe that he can do in you, through Jesus, what he says he can? And are you willing to let him?
Right.
And those 3 questions were the core of every teaching. Do you believe the Word of God? Do you believe Jesus can do what he says he can? And will you let him? That was Simplify. For all those years, before it was on a wall, before it was on a T-shirt, before it was on a hat, before it was on anything, it was just life is complicated, but faith doesn't have to be. And in 2018, when we launched the project, we started printing hats and shirts and stuff, and people bought them. It went gangbusters. And, we were moving a lot of merchandise and whatever. And somewhere in there got hung up in this concept of like, okay, what are some different styles? What are some different things that we can put out? And slowly, incrementally, unintentionally wandered away from this concept of just simplifying a life of faith. And a big part of this podcast now, and the revamping and focusing on community, being intentional to come back and let people share their faith stories, is to get back to that core, to get back to that basic part and piece of life is complicated. Like those 7 years that you were talking about, when things got complicated. You're in a new season, new age, new phase, new stage, new all these things. faith in and of itself really is not that complicated. And that I love the fact that relationally now, you and Alex have found that happy medium between Methodism and Baptist. That you've reconnected into a local church and are investing. They don't know it yet, or maybe they do. They've hit the jackpot with y'all. I know, as from a pastoral side, if the two of you ended up in our church, I would be like, yes, because of all that you bring to the table. To begin to build those relationships that you're talking about, the 26-year-old relationships that you hope are around when you're 60. So much there into the nuances, the rhythms, these rhythms of grace, this simplification of faith. I really, really hope that our work continues to move people back to just these fundamental truths, these simple, bare bone basics, and encourages people into relationship with each other, to rekindle, reconnect. What do you think? You said, it surprised me actually. It's such a compliment. You said you've listened to all the podcasts. What do you think about a Simplify retreat? Like a grown-up
I'm
Simplify.
I'm taking off. Give me advance notice.
You're there for it?
Like, according to Alex, I'm like really annoying about if I'll take off or not. But I'll save up my PTO.
Yeah. I think that would be so fun, man.
I mean, I was wondering if you're going to ask me about it, because I knew my answer was yes, but it's, to me, like, it would just be like a family reunion.
Yeah. Yeah. But then all these new family members.
Yeah.
So it's been so cool. People from the Midwest getting to know people from the Southeast through this, and then reaching out. Hey, would it be okay if I had so-and-so's email? I'd like to touch base with them and let them know that I listened and that something that they said really resonated. So now you got people from out here emailing people from there that they only know they've met through this. So to put all those folks in one place at one time for like a long weekend
I feel like I was nervous to be on here because I really feel like I'm one of the few people that, doesn't have a job associated with a church. So I was very nervous to be on. But
no, not at all.
Yeah. I think just because you don't work for a church, or it doesn't mean that your story's less or that you know God less. So
that's exactly
I'm
right.
glad
Amber Vroman, you're the second person that said that. Amber Vroman said the same thing.
I'm glad I didn't.
So that just tells me we need to have.
I considered chickening out.
Did you?
Yes.
No, come on.
Only because you texted me about this probably a year ago, and I've been not dreading it, anticipating it for like a year. You've
been overthinking it. I know you. You've been overthinking it. What you've been doing.
Yes.
It literally, these episodes, y'all, for those of you that are out there listening and you're in the pipeline and you're coming on at some point, you don't have to work at a church. You don't have to. It's friends catching up and the world gets to eavesdrop.
Yes.
Is literally
that's why
what it is.
I love. That's why I listen to every podcast because I'm like, let me hear what's going on.
Yeah. And how good was it to hear Brian Landreth?
It's crazy. Can't believe he's.
That's what I told him. I'm like, when people see your name pop up, even on the advertisement, they're going to be like, I can't believe that guy's still alive.
Man, the stories.
Yeah, for real. So, one last thing, I guess I should tell you. I've deleted all my personal social media, so I don't have any social media personally. So for you or for whoever listening to this, if you want to keep up what we're doing, follow the Simplify stuff on Facebook and Instagram. I won't be super active on there. I don't have it on my phone at all. I can only access it from a desktop. So we will be posting. If you need me, call. I'm headed in that direction. I am going in the flip phone way.
Always bound to happen.
It's inevitable, and I'm headed that direction. But so if I don't show up on your friends list, it's not personal. I didn't. It's not incremental. Like I just killed it all. Do follow along on the Simplify pages. We'll be active-ish on that. But if you need me, call me or text. If I don't know you and you don't have my cell phone number, email simplifyprojectco@gmail. But it's probably best in this format to just toss that out there. But please follow the Simplify stuff. At some point, we're going to find somebody that'll manage all that for us, and it'll be like cool. I'm not cool, and I don't have the bandwidth to tend to that stuff. So if you're out there and you're our tribe and you're creative and you would like to do that, let me know, and we'll turn you loose. But yeah, cool. All right, CB, we're at an hour and 15 minutes, so we'll wrap up. But thank you so much. It's good to see your face. Yeah, it's good to see your face and hear your voice. And we will definitely. So we got to have Stephen on. I'll have Allie on, just her, and then we'll have an episode with the two of you. That would be really, really cool. I guess that's the direction we're headed. Michael Meeks text. He finally listened to Alex Aiken's episode and would love to have a recording with the two of them, which would be small group based.
They had threads that were the same.
Yes, and we got to get Brandon Freeby and Connor on. They are the same creature, just about 15 years apart. It blows my mind, those two guys. It is a little bit scary. So thanks for coming on. I love you. I do love you. And I hope that we get to see you at some point in person sooner rather than later. It's been way too long. I guess the last time I saw you maybe was a Georgia-Florida game, maybe.
Maybe come again. You'll see me again.
I really don't remember.
I'll be there probably.
It's been too long. Yeah. All right, so I end every episode by asking the same question. It's the one question you knew was coming. So, Caroline Davis, how do you keep things simple?
So I have thought about this, and I was thinking how when you first rolled out Simplify, basically you're like, in my brain it was like, throw away all your shirts, keep 3 shirts, keep 1 pair of shoes. And Simplify has kind of evolved for me. It didn't have to be that extreme.
Yeah.
I know you have more extremes than I have with it, but for me, Simplify it has become just this mindset, kind of like slow wide turns. But my favorite Bible verse is Micah 6:8, and to simplify that, it's just act right, treat people with mercy. So treat people how you want to be treated, and walk humbly with God. And humble is the key word. Always know that you walk with God, but don't forget to be the humble one. And so that's what simplify means to me, that verse.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Thank you so much. Yeah, it wasn't 3, it was 7.
Oh.
7 shirts.
7.
7 pairs of underwear, 7 pairs of socks. 1 for each day of the week.
You almost had me hooked.
Yeah,
I will say, I'm like, I'm not so showy. I don't feel like I still wear my Old Navy pants from 10 years ago.
No. Yeah, no, you're not. And not everybody's made for that life, but I tell you what, it does. It takes so much. I get a lot of flack because I wear the same stuff over and over, and people say I have a uniform. I really don't care. It takes just one less thing I have to think about, and I can put resources and time and effort and energy into other things. But yes, actually, I purge about once every 6 months. It's so hard because I get sentimentally attached to the memories. So like Dave, so my one kind of caveat is Dave concert tees. I've still got all them just tucked away. I could not make myself ditched the tease from the Dave
I have my
shows.
Avett Brothers shirt on.
Avett Brothers, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, that less is more. Focus on the things that matter. You know,
Good
in the
mindset.
end, yeah, it can be. When the lights go down and the music fades and it all boils down in the end, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter. But the relationships do. Relationships are what have the lasting legacy. So, all right, hug you people. Tell them all I love them. Thank you for your time, and we will talk to you